So, LEGO has Pokemon. The prophecy has finally been fulfilled. The biggest toy company in the world has taken from its direct competitor one of the biggest brands in the world. But did you know that historically, Pokemon has been one of the weirdest brands to adapt into building block toys? Yeah, over the past 30 years, 5 different companies have held the rights to Pokemon, each taking a different approach. Some played it safe, some played it cheap, and some went all in, only to meet a tragic fate. Today on Brick Failures, I want to talk about the cancelled Pokemon construction lines. The good, the bad, and the bricks. So, let's begin. Our story technically begins in the year 2000 when Mega Bloks released these, the Pokeblocks. These were blue-studded canvases where kids could place their bricks to create Pokemon art. Not much is known about them other than the fact that they were officially licensed and released in the year 2000. The line featured Pikachu and Charizard, each set containing around 220 pieces. However, since no more sets were produced, it's safe to assume they weren't a big hit. Later, in June 2003, Bandai and Mega Bloks announced a partnership to co-develop and distribute construction toys in Japan. This collaboration combined Mega Bloks' expertise in building block sets with Bandai's popular licenses, one of which was Pokemon. This was a strategic move by Mega Bloks to position itself as the dominant construction brand in Asia. The following year, Mega Bloks debuted the Pokemon theme with the Build and Battle line, each set containing enough bricks to build one of 2 Pokemon from the same evolutionary line, but not both at the same time. The sets also included a strength chart, scoring pieces, and 2 dice. As the name suggests, a build and battle game was attached to these sets. The Pokemon featured in this line were Pikachu/Pichu, Torchic/Combusken, and Mudkip/Swampert. A Treecko and Gravel set was planned, but ultimately unreleased. In terms of design, these were somewhat faithful recreations of the Gen 3 starters, using bricks, slopes, and curved pieces to form their shapes. However, they lacked articulation, making them more like brick-built statues than action figures. For me, the coolest feature was the included Pokeball where you could store the Pokemon and carry them around to battle. Speaking of the battling game, the game itself was very straightforward and luck-based. To play, first the players placed their strength pieces on their Pokédex plate, according to the provided chart for each Pokemon. A die was then rolled to determine who starts. The first player then chose one of 5 attributes against their opponent, like attack versus attack or speed versus speed. Then each player rolls a die, and the one with the lower roll removes a corresponding piece from their Pokédex plate. When all the blocks for an attribute are removed, the purple block at the end of the Pokédex plate is also removed, and the player with the most remaining purple blocks at the end of the round earns a golden block. Players can then continue competing to collect the most golden blocks. While I like the ideas behind Build and Battle, the actual gameplay wasn't particularly engaging, especially considering that kids could just battle their Pokemon in the Game Boy games, and that had a more complex gameplay loop than just rolling die. But before we continue, if you're enjoying the video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. This video took a long time to make, and any support would be greatly appreciated. For 2005, Mega Bloks abandoned the build and battle concept and shifted to more traditional sets. However, with Gen 4 approaching and over 400 Pokemon to choose from, creating unique molds for each Pokemon and trainers would have been astronomically expensive. Instead, the design team opted for a more simple, stylized approach. This led to the creation of what I call Pokemon blocks. Now, some might see these as cheap, lazy reuses, but I view them as a creative solution to a difficult problem. By using the same mold for multiple Pokemon, Mega Bloks was able to produce a variety of characters while keeping costs down. Plus, aside from their shapes, the printing on these was surprisingly detailed and accurate. Now, the first few sets featuring the Pokemon blocks released in July of 2005 with the Pokeball collection. In total, they released 5 Pokeballs, all retailing for about $13 in 2005. And they all reused the same Pokeball mold from the Build and Battle line. What differentiated these sets were the Pokemon selection inside, as each set contained 18 Pokemon blocks with 2 additional bigger Pokemon blocks, and 15 standard blocks, as well as stickers to simulate attacks and abilities. Personally, I love these sets. They provided an easy way to collect multiple Pokemon, including great characters like Charizard, Mewtwo, and Venusaur, in an overall great package. But Mega Bloks didn't just stop there. In July 2005, they also released way more product, like the DX bucket. As the name suggests, this was a giant bucket with Pikachu's face on it, though inside there were 300 pieces, 2 minifigures, Ash and May, and 10 Pokemon blocks. The main build was a town with a Pokemon Center, and it even included a slide to move around Pokemon between areas. At the same time, Mega Bloks introduced the basic sets. These sets consisted of buildable Pokemon with a trainer and 5 Pokemon blocks. In summer 2005, we got one for Venusaur, one for Charizard, and one for Blastoise. A bizarre thing about these were the inclusion of alternative builds, but instead of creating new Pokemon, they turned into random vehicles or locations. Weird? Yes. Fun? Absolutely. Later in October 2005, we got 2 more sets. A buildable Lucario set based on the Lucario and the Mystery of Mew film, and a Pokemon Stadium playset which included 4 minifigures, Ash, May, Jessie, and James, plus 4 Pokemon blocks. The playset also had a battle arena where kids could place their Pokemon, pull a string to shake the arena, and whichever figure fell first, that Pokemon lost the battle. For March 2006, Mega Bloks discontinued the Pokeball collection and replaced it with the Mini Pokeball collection. These smaller Pokeballs were made from translucent plastic, and each one held 1 Pokemon block inside. The first wave consisted of 6 Pokemon, which were Pikachu, Jirachi, Eevee, Bonsly, Plusle, and Mayhem. That same month, 2 more basic sets were released, one for Groudon and one for Kyogre. In July 2006, Mega Bloks released a second Mini Pokeball collection, this time with Pikachu, Mantike, Manaphy, Buizel, and Chatot, and they also introduced a second Pokemon bucket based on the movie Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. This included Ash, Jack, 6 Pokemon blocks, and builds based on ships and the temple from the film. In November 2006, Mega Bloks launched a small carnival series featuring Pikachu, Manaphy, Turtwig, Piplup, and Chimchar to coincide with the release of Diamond and Pearl in Japan. They also released a new Pikachu bucket based on Diamond and Pearl, and while it looks like the first one, it was actually quite different. This version featured build for the Gen 4 starters or a park for the Pokemon to play in. It also included 10 Pokemon blocks, but no trainers. And finally, the last set of the year was called the Mountain Playland Playset. It had 10 Pokemon blocks, including block versions for Palkia and Dialga, as well as interactive features like a slide and a gear system for the Pokemon to move around in. Overall, this set really captures the fun, colorful spirit of the Bandai Mega Bloks Pokemon line. But since 2006 had so many sets, 2007 slowed things down a bit. The first new sets didn't arrive till July 2007, but these sets did not disappoint, as we got a buildable Dialga, a buildable Palkia, and a buildable Darkrai. While we got less sets this year, Bandai Mega Bloks interestingly moved away from their blocky designs, and instead had smoother builds, featuring sculpted elements for more complex shapes of the legendaries, and they even had movable joints now, without the weird alternate builds. Later in 2007, we got 2 more sets. The Gym Challenge playset, which included 4 Pokemon trainers, 4 Pokemon blocks, and the same gear system for kids to play with, and we got a basic set Torterra, Infernape, and Empoleon. This set featured the entire evolution line for the Gen 4 starters, growing from small Pokemon blocks to full-size builds. For 2008, again, we didn't get any new sets for the first half of the year, though in July we did get a basic set Giratina, which had 2 buildable forms. Later in November 2008, we got 2 more sets. An updated Diamond and Pearl Pikachu bucket, which was also the same as the 2006 version, but this one also included Ash and Dawn, as well as the Playland DX set, a bigger and better set than the Mountain Playland from 2006. This one featured 20 Pokemon blocks and had features like a zipline, a slide, a carousel, and a Wheel of Fortune. Personally, I think this was the best set in the entire line, but sadly, this was also the last set in the line. You see, after 2008, the Bandai Mega Bloks contract ended, and even though the sets were popular in Japan, Bandai decided to move away from construction toys and focus more on model kits and other product lines. Looking back, the Bandai Mega Bloks Pokemon line had a special charm to it. It wasn't great, but the builds were simple and fun. They didn't blow the entire budget on molds, though they could have. They chose a more stylistic approach that allowed them to make hundreds of different Pokemon instead of limiting themselves to just a few. And speaking of stylistic approaches, this leads us to Ionix. In 2013, Spin Master launched Ionix, the shape-shifting brick, which I've already talked about on the channel before, so I won't go into it. The point is, Spin Master wanted to revolutionize the construction market, and part of their strategy also included making license sets. That's how, in 2014, we got these, the Ionix Pokemon sets. Now this line was very short-lived, as we only got one wave with a total of 7 sets. 5 single packs with Ash, Pikachu, Fennekin, Chespin, and Proeki, and 2 playsets. 1 2-pack with Eevee and Pancham, and 1 evolution pack based on the Venusaur evolution line, including Bulbasaur, Venusaur, and Mega Venusaur, weirdly skipping Ivysaur. On paper, a Pokemon construction line with shape-shifting bricks sounds like a great idea, considering evolving Pokemon is a core game mechanic. Like, what if the shape-shifting brick gimmick was a part of the Pokemon evolution? But in reality, the Pokemon line exposed all of Ionix's flaws. With something like Tenkei Knights, there was a plot reason why the characters are bricks that can shapeshift into minifigures. But with Pokemon, Ash just looks terrible, and there's no reason for it. But then you also have the Pokemon themselves. Pikachu, for example, is a terrible toy. For starters, its brick form is just a sphere with studs coming out of it, and when you transform it and add the Pikachu molds, it's a big Pikachu with 0 articulation that's also bigger than Ash. And it's kind of a bummer because Spin Master is a very capable company and they actually tried to make sculpted Pokemon in building block form. But their concept was flawed from the start, and because of that, the product came out poor. Though thankfully this was not the end for Pokemon in construction toys, since right after Spin Master dropped the license, Mega Bloks quickly picked it up and started developing their new take on Pokemon. But before we talk about the second Mega line, we gotta first head east to Asia, because apparently the Pokemon construction rights are not exclusive, and while in the West we've gotten construction toys from Spin Master and Mattel for the last decade, in Asia there's actually been 2 other companies producing Pokemon construction toys that rarely get brought up in conversation. Enter Nanoblock. In 2013, Japanese company Kawada, under their Nanoblock brand, began releasing a series of Pokemon sets, though an important distinction is that Nanoblocks are smaller bricks that are not LEGO compatible, and they're also not marketed as toys. These are seen more as buildable art decorations. The line began with the Kanto starters, and has since consistently released new models on a yearly basis. Personally, I find the Nanoblock line to be quite compelling, even though I don't personally collect them. I think they're well-made products that understand their market, though in 2014, Nanoblock did deviate from their product style and began producing LEGO-compatible bricks. They call these Nanoblock Plus. For Pokemon, they released a wave of 5 sets. These centered on 1 Pokemon per set, and depicted different environments for each, like a treehouse, a castle, a coffee shop, battle arena, and a harbor, which could also be combined with each other. Adding to the weirdness of these sets, they also included Pokemon, but they were not in a stylized construction aesthetic. Instead, they just depicted the Pokemon like they look in the games. I don't know why we only got these 5 sets, but considering they still produce the regular Nanoblock Pokemon, I'm guessing these were just too expensive to produce, and they decided to completely focus on their core product instead. Now, let's talk about Cumin Keeppley. The Cumin Keeppley Pokemon line is arguably one of the most interesting lines in Pokemon's brick history. Cumin, for those of you that don't know, is a Chinese construction brand, and with a quick Google search, you'll discover they make mostly LEGO knockoffs like City, Model Power, or Monkey King: The Story of Wukong. But like we talked about in the SpongeBob video, as these Chinese companies grow in size and revenue, they start negotiating and obtaining official licenses from recognizable brands. But because they don't want their licensed product to be seen as bootleg, they feature the licensed product under a new name. In this case, Cumin produces their licensed products under the name Keeppley. In 2020, Keeppley began producing Pokemon sets. Their first wave of products were under the Copy subline and featured the standard Pokemon you come to expect, like Pikachu, Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Eevee, and Psyduck. And well, yeah, these are LEGO Brickhead style Pokemon builds, which personally, I don't support companies that copy other brands, especially when they're perfectly capable of creating their own style. But things just get more interesting from here. Also in 2020, they released these, the Mini Pokeball line. It featured 6 Pokemon, Pikachu, Eevee, Meowth, Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle, and they all came packaged in these Pokeballs and included small terrain builds with a nameplate and pinholes on the sides. Notably, the design of Keeppley's Pokemon figures vastly resembles LEGO's design language. Now, I'm not saying they're ripping off LEGO. For starters, LEGO hadn't done Pokemon yet, so there's nothing to rip off. What I am saying is that Keeppley emulates the LEGO aesthetic. If you look at their Pokemon figures, they remind me a lot of mid-2010s specialty figures, like the Angry Birds line or the Nexonite Grunts. I 100% believe they took LEGO's design language into consideration when making these. Additionally, Keeppley also made posable Pokemon figures based on the evolved versions of the basic Pokemon, like Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise, Gyarados, Mewtwo, and they also made a larger Pikachu build. And through 2021 and 2022, Keeppley kept making Pokemon sets. They released these weird copy Pikachus with different outfits like Team Rocket, Team Aqua, Team Galactic, and Team Flare, as well as weird Pikachu-themed vehicles from regular cars to buses and food trucks. They also made a Pokemon Center, and even a Christmas music box. But then, in 2023, Keeppley changed the design language they established in 2020, and their new releases featured new Pokemon builds more reminiscent of the anime, moving away from LEGO's aesthetic and creating these genuinely great Pokemon figures that don't look like construction toys at first glance, but make for great display pieces. Keeppley also found a lot of success with their potted plant Pokemon line. As the name suggests, these are buildable plants that integrate popular Pokemon into the build. And they also moved away from their Pokemon minifigures and introduced new molds, more akin to the source material. And these plant sets are genuinely fantastic. They made the basics like Pikachu, Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, and Jigglypuff, but then in 2024, they released the Gen 9 starters like Fuecoco, Sprigatito, and Quaxly, as well as Sylveon and Tugpay. As of 2025, these sets are still available online, though it's still up in the air if they will keep their license from 2026 and beyond. Overall, the Keeppley Pokemon line falls in this weird category where they actually did make genuinely good products. Their Pokeball line, while I can argue emulates LEGO a lot, was also quite affordable and had some great industrial design attached to it. And then their last few sets moved away from being simple LEGO-like toys into being more decorative products aiming to please a more cutesy market. I'd argue Keeppley is the second best Pokemon construction line, only behind, well, Mega Construx. So, back in 2015, when Spin Master cancelled Ionix, Mega Bloks was quick to acquire the rights for Pokemon before any other brand. But what many people don't seem to understand is that Mega Bloks really needed Pokemon. You see, since 2008, Mega brands have been struggling financially. Although they've enjoyed success with Halo, aside from Halo, Mega Bloks lacked a go-to evergreen brand at retail, especially one aimed at children. While LEGO, their main competitor, rose to mainstream dominance in the early 2010s, Mega Bloks struggled, eventually leading to Mattel buying Mega brands in 2014. Once Mattel took over, they began canceling lines left and right, and working to change the public's perception of Mega Bloks. Because, let's be honest, many fans have always viewed Mega Bloks as a lesser version of LEGO. I know some of you might disagree, but that's just a common sentiment I see online. Understanding this, in 2017, Mattel rebranded Mega Bloks as Mega Construx. And at the New York Toy Fair, they officially revealed a new line of Pokemon sets scheduled for release in the summer of 2017. The Mega Construx Pokemon line marked a clear departure from what Mega Bloks was doing at the time. Instead of making Pokemon in a micro-figure scale, they decided to focus simply on creating great Pokemon figures. Like Ionix, they invested heavily in new molds to accurately recreate each Pokemon. However, unlike Ionix, these figures were highly articulated. For 2017, the product range mainly included 5 categories. We got the Pokeball series, a wave of 6 Pokeballs, each including one small buildable Pokemon inside, the Versus sets, a 2-pack with small terrain builds, single sets, larger builds focused on one evolved Pokemon, dioramas, bigger scenes featuring multiple Pokemon, multi-packs, sets featuring multiple Pokemon either as evolution lines or a series of starters. For 2018, the lineup continued with an additional 4 waves of the Pokeball series, 8 Versus sets, 4 single sets, a Snorlax evolution line set, a diorama, the introduction of Jumbo Pikachu, and they also released a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Gengar set. For 2019, again, we got 4 waves of the Pokeball series, one of which was an All-Star series, 5 Versus sets, 4 single sets, 1 diorama, an Eevee evolution pack, 2 multi-packs, and with the release of Detective Pikachu, we got 1 wave of 6 sets based on the film. It was clear that Pokemon was doing great for Mega. Aside from actually being available at retail worldwide, something other Mega lines struggled to do previously, they also kept investing money into it. Traditionally, after the 3rd year of a toy line, you start seeing a decline in the number of new molds a company introduces. But not only did Mega Bloks keep making more figures, they start fixing popular characters. For example, Pikachu received an updated sculpted tail, and Eevee got a new rubbery fur piece to improve the look. In 2020, we got 3 waves of the Pokeball series, though one wave was technically again just reuses of the popular characters. Additionally, we got 4 more Versus sets, 5 new single sets, a Jumbo Eevee, a Battle Arena multi-pack, an Advent calendar, and the introduction of the Build and Show sets. This was a wave of 4 buildable Pokemon based on smaller characters, like Pikachu or Mew. 2021 marked Pokemon's 25th anniversary, leading to an increase in Kanto nostalgia sets. In terms of the Pokeball series, we got 3 more waves, once again one featuring only Gen 1 Pokemon, as well as 2 Versus sets, 4 single sets, 3 Build and Show sets, 1 multi-pack, and 1 Jumbo Pokeball. In 2022, Mega Construx rebranded simply as Mega. But it felt like Mattel injected new life into the line, as we got 3 waves of the Pokeball series, 4 Pokemon Evolution sets, 2 single packs, 1 new Build and Show set, as well as a Kanto multi-pack, 1 Jumbo Charmander, and the introduction of a Pokemon modular diorama line. This line featured single Pokemon sets with small builds in larger locations that could be interconnected with each other. They also introduced the Pokemon Motion sets. These were simple automatas that when cranked, created a sense of movement for the Pokemon. At this point, the line had been running for 6 years, yet instead of feeling like it was on the brink of cancellation, it actually felt like Mega was building momentum with the number of ideas and products they were putting out. In 2023, Mega again came out with a bang, as we got 3 more waves of the Pokeball series, 2 evolution sets, 4 single sets, 2 new display scenes, 2 Build and Show sets, 1 Jumbo Bulbasaur, 1 Jumbo Great Ball, 4 Pokemon Motion sets, as well as 8 modular dioramas that introduced a brand new gear brick that when rotated added movement to the dioramas. And when you connected all the dioramas together, they could all move at the same time. To me, this was the best year of Mega's Pokemon line. It combined play and collector product in a way that was able to please everybody. But then in 2024, something happened, as we got 4 more waves of the Pokeball series, yet they became harder to find in stores. Series 23, in fact, was extremely rare. We also got 4 new multi-packs that all reuse molds, 2 new motion sets, but no new single sets nor jumbo sets. In the summer, we did get 3 new dioramas, 2 smaller sets and 1 bigger set that could combine together. And Mega also introduced a new collector series featuring a buildable Ash, buildable Pokedex, and pixel art sets. And while the 2023 stuff was still around, the lack of new molds and quantity of sets felt weird, especially compared to 2023. Many saw the writing on the wall and feared the line was coming to an end. But personally, I viewed Pokemon as Mega's equivalent to Star Wars. It's fundamental to their business. And if Mega really was to lose Pokemon, it would be a giant blow, both for fans and for the company. Finally, in 2025, we got the announcement that Mattel was launching a new construction brand called Mattel Brick Shop, bringing into question the fate of Mega. Was it a rebrand, a subline, or a totally different thing? But most importantly, was Pokemon staying at Mattel? As a fan, I wanted an answer, and then suddenly, on March 18th, 2025, LEGO announced that they had reached an agreement with the Pokemon Company to produce Pokemon construction toys. This announcement came as a massive surprise to everybody. A lot of people were filled with joy at the idea of LEGO and Pokemon joining forces, but a lot of people were also disappointed, especially those that had been collecting Mega Pokemon sets since 2017. A friend of mine had been collecting the Jumbo line, and he was really anticipating Jumbo Squirtle, which sadly now is never going to be released. And what sucks more to me is that at physical retail stores, aside from Hot Wheels, Pokemon was Mega's main presence on shelves. Even though I am a LEGO fan, I believe in competition, and if Mega is on shelves next to LEGO, they bring competition. And now, Mega has lost one of its core licenses. So, how did this happen? While working on this video, I reached out to a few people that let me know that the LEGO Pokemon deal has actually been in place for a while. As per sources, both brands came to an agreement as early as 2023. So, did Mega LEGO Pokemon, or did LEGO steal Pokemon from Mega? As of now, that's still unknown, but considering construction toys take about 2 years to develop, it seems that when LEGO and the Pokemon Company came to an agreement, Mega decided to stop investing money. That's why 2024 was filled with multi-packs and buildable sets that did not need new tooling, and the dioramas we got were probably already finished when Mega pulled the plug on Pokemon. And as of 2025, we haven't seen any new Pokemon sets, and I doubt they will release more. Though Mega has continued supplying old product to retailers, so it seems they're just going to squeeze out whatever they can out of all the molds they've made over the past years. As a LEGO fan, I am excited for LEGO Pokemon, but as a product designer, I feel for the Mega team. They really made great products that, let's be completely honest, most of the time people overlooked. Considering Pokemon is an extremely hard brand to adapt in construction form because of the financial investment it demands, I have a huge amount of respect for what Mega did with Pokemon. As we saw throughout the video, there are multiple approaches companies can take with Pokemon, and Mega chose the hardest one. But sadly, the line ended when I think it was just about to reach its peak. So if you've never bought any Mega Pokemon sets, as of the time of making this video, they're still widely available and heavily discounted. Because while there's been a lot of Pokemon construction lines, both official and unofficial, I truly believe Mega did it best. But hey, that's just my brick opinion. Thanks for watching, and take care.